2026 was one of the best years in recent memory for thrash metal. Well, can 2026 live up to those expectations? Well, two of the heavyweights in the thrash metal movement have thrown their hat in the ring. Can they live up to those lofty expectations? First up, Kreator with their brand new album, Krushers of the World. Did they pull it off? Find out next. Welcome, metal enthusiasts, to another episode of the Metal Dude Abides. We have been talking about how great of a year 2025 was in the thrash metal movement. You had legendary band Testament putting out a brand new album. It was sensational. You had big comebacks from legendary bands Coroner and Century. You had a younger band like Warbringer who put together a fantastic album. And you had two bands from the big four German thrash metal bands. They put out albums in 2025, Destruction and Sodom. So what in the world could 2026 do to keep up the pace, to keep the momentum going? Well, come to find out, January, you have two of the big heavyweights also putting out their own thrash metal albums. You have the third leg of the big German metal bands, Kreator, and probably the worst kept secret is about a week from now, Megadeth is going to put out their farewell album. So right off the bat, January is saying, wait a minute, 2025, we have something to say about this. So I want to take a look at these brand new thrash metal albums and see if they hold up. The first album we're going to look at is Kreator, Krushers of the World. If you're familiar with how we do this, we're going to go track by track and let you know how the new album holds up. Kreator has their opening track, Seven Serpents. Now, way back in September, they released this as a single. And right off the bat, I could tell that this was going to be a pretty interesting album. Now, if you haven't been following Kreator for a while, this is their 16th studio album. And they've gone through some changes over the years. Right now, Kreator has an interesting blend of thrash metal and melodic death metal, and maybe even a little bit of traditional heavy metal. Well, the very first song kind of highlights this. Seven Serpents, their first single, really starts off with a kind of cool atmospheric start that kind of builds up the anticipation for the song. But boy, when this song hits, it hits hard. The drummer on this track, Ventor, has been with the band all the way back from the beginning. He has been doing this for 40 years, and I gotta say, he still sounds sensational. I don't know how you can play the drums this fast and furious for 40 years, but he's pulled it off. Also, as you go along with the song, at about the 2.5-minute mark, they do kind of a little bit of a time change, kind of change the tempo up, put some different melodic riffs in there. Just a sensational opening track. Like I said, way back in September, I knew I was going to review this album based on the strength of this track. The album is off to a fantastic start. The second track on the album is a little ditty entitled Satanic Anarchy. I had to laugh at the title of this song because that's just so metal of a title. But here's the interesting part, and this is where maybe there'll be a little bit of controversy. If you get a song called Satanic Anarchy, you're expecting this to be the heaviest, doomiest, darkest thing you've ever heard. And yet, this is one of the catchiest songs you're going to see in this entire album. And that's kind of the new version of Kreator. Not so much a relentless pounding thrash metal go for the throat, but this is where that kind of melodic death metal kind of moves into the scene. A lot more melody, a lot more catchiness. So old-time Kreator fans might get a little uncomfortable here, but I think they pull it off brilliantly on this album. It's a very nice blend of heavy and melodic, and you're going to hear that a lot on this album. If you're familiar with my format for doing album reviews, I always tell you my favorite songs, but I also tell you my least favorite songs on the album. And ironically, right here, track 3, the title track, Krushers of the World, this is probably my least favorite track on the album. Now, hear me out. This is a very good song. In fact, you're going to see that there's not any stinkers on this entire album. And it's kind of odd that you would have a track, the title track. This was also one of the songs released as a single prior to this album coming out. That being the worst track on the album is kind of unusual, but here we are. And I think the reason for it is pretty simple. This is a song that's trying to be more of a hit, more of a single. And I really think that when you get to the chorus, they get into that kind of anthemic, I don't know, I don't want to go as far as cheesy, but I'm really not a big anthem guy, and this anthem seems to fall just a little bit flat for me. But hold on, because after this song, something amazing happens on this album. All right, we're 3 songs into the album. Really like the opening track, Seven Serpents. Second song, surprisingly catchy. And the third song is also really catchy, but I'm really not seeing the heaviness that I was expecting after the first 3 songs. Now, the fourth song comes on there, Train Palast, and I'm probably saying that completely wrong. Pardon for my bad German. That's translated to Palace of Tears, which is talking about a crossing point way back in Berlin when we still had the Berlin Wall up. Well, it starts out with like this ballerina music box type of music, but don't let that fool you. This album is about to get heavy. It's about to take off. I said earlier, something magical is about to happen on this album, and it happens right here. From this point forward in the album, sure, it's still catchy. Sure, it still has that melody. But every song from this point forward is just an absolute banger. And one of the things that puts this song ahead of the others is the vocals on this are unbelievable. You have the lead singer for Kreator, Millet. He is joined by the lead singer of a band named Jerez, Britta Gortz. Again, mispronouncings all over the place. Holy shit, her voice is perfection on this song. It takes and transports this album into an entire new direction. This is where the vocals just start snarling, and the power and the intensity of this album just go up to 10, and they never stop from here. As you can probably tell, I really enjoyed track 4, Trainplast. In fact, I think that might be my favorite song on the album. So when I came to track 5, Barbarian, I said, woo, this song has a tough act to follow. But follow it did, and it did so beautifully. Like I said, this album is now in a mode, it's just unrelentless. This song just keeps going, but check this out, it even gets more intense. Kreator puts more speed, more power. This song is amazing. This is the portion of the album where I'm like, all right, you better buckle up because we're going harder and faster than we have been in the first few tracks. I love the guitar work on this song. I love the ending to this song, Barbarian. These are 2 of the best tracks on the album back to back, Trainpalast and Barbarian. Track 6, Blood of Our Blood. It just keeps coming, folks. Faster and faster. This is another banger in a row. This is 3 in a row now that have been amazing. One of the things that's very difficult to do, and what Kreator's doing an amazing job of, is when you start mixing those genres. Thrash, known for its speed, known for its intensity. When you mix it with that melodic death metal, sometimes you can go too far the other way, as I think they did with the title track. But if you can take these two and put the best of both together, you've really got some genius stuff. This is another genius song. If you want to get an example of great guitars on this album, right here, Blood of Our Blood has some of the best guitar work on the entire album. The first few songs were catchy, but not nearly as heavy as I expected. Now they are kicking on all cylinders, catchy and heavy. And now I'm starting to realize that this is one of the best albums I'm going to review all year. We come to track 7. And now you're at that point where you've heard 3 of the best songs you're ever going to hear. And now you're kind of just waiting for maybe them to take a break, maybe them to step back. And here comes Combatants. This is one of my favorite tracks on the entire album. This thing has a thundering riff. As that riff's going off, I'm making all sorts of stink faces on this thing. This has now I talked about the fact that you mix up thrash, you mix up melodic death metal, but here's where there's a little bit of that heavy metal put in there. This has a little bit of that Accept feel. Maybe it's because they have those group vocals in the background. This reminds me very much of like the song Teutonic Terror, for instance, off the Accept album. And trust me, I love that. That is a compliment all the way. This is, like I said, this is the part of the album where you start thinking, are they going to lose steam? Are they going to fade off at the end? But it is closing hard. They are charging forward with a fury. For those who know, I love thrash metal. And I love melodic death metal. And here, Kreator's putting together like peanut butter and jelly. Really mixing the two brilliantly. No complaints whatsoever. But on track 8, we have the song Psychotic Imperator. Now, if you are not as happy with this development as I am, if you want some more old school thrash, well, maybe you should come right to this song, because this has that kind of old school thrash feel. Really galloping, heavy, straightforward, just an absolute banger. And, you know, the other thing I like about this is they sprinkle a little bit of atmosphere into these songs. We talked about it a little bit in the Seven Serpents. It kind of leads in, builds that anticipation. Here they kind of bring in those choral vocals, that really high pitched kind of choir music. Often I associate with like the Omen movies, just really spooky, haunting stuff. And I will say, while I loved the guitar work a couple tracks ago, as I'm going through it, now this becomes my favorite guitar solo on the entire record. This thing is, again, this thing has a little bit of everything for everybody and all sorts of fans, but if you love your thrash metal, go right here to track 8. Losing Steam. Ha! Track 9, Death Scream. This might be my second favorite song on the entire album. This thing is an absolute vicious song. I love the vocal effects here. Melee does a great job in that the chorus is basically saying Death Scream a couple of different times, once with more of a clean vocal, and then once with this kind of distorted, deranged vocal. Really very good. And they're just pummeling you with the drums at this point. Ventor, I tip my hat. The drums on this album are some of the best you're going to hear from start to finish. Unrelenting. Again, there's a lot of bands that are still playing great metal 40 plus years into their careers that cannot do what Ventor's doing on the drums. It is difficult. I always kind of laugh because I've watched Metallica, over the years, and when they pull out one of the old fast thrash metal boy Lars, he's just dripping the sweat. He's doing everything he can to keep up. This guy, Ventor, is just going that pace every song. Very difficult to do. This is just another fantastic song. Great vocals, great drums. Let's see how they close it up. The final track on the album is called Loyal to the Grave, and while I will have to admit it does take a step back on the heaviness, it could not keep up with those last 3 or 4 songs. It is still a very good song. Great guitar work on this finale. Again, the drums are just crushing at the end of this. The theme of this song is staying loyal to heavy metal. We're a family after all. Now, some people might say, well, what are we talking about here? That's a little bit of a cheesy ending, but we that go back a ways, we remember when the heavy metal movement happened way back in the new wave of British heavy metal. I love these songs where we remind people that we have a lot more in common than we have to be separated from. I love the song like Denim and Leather, talks about how we all, came into the music scene together and we're going to leave together. Accept just did a song about this. Judas Priest has done songs about this. All, because if you think about it, we have been a heavy metal community. I made this comment in one of my other videos. I have now been listening to heavy metal over 50 years. And I guess at this point, I'm also going to be loyal to the grave, because at this point, I just can't even imagine loving another type of music as much as I love heavy metal. These guys love this music, so I think this was a perfectly good way to end the album. A little tribute and just a reminder, as we go out and the internet is all about, social media, fighting and bickering. We as a heavy metal community should embrace all those who are in the family and, bring forth the mantle of heavy metal till the end of time. So I like this. Nice little way to end the album. Let's go to my final thoughts on the album. You can probably tell by now, I love this album. In the past 10 months, 3 of the original big German thrash metal bands have put out albums. You had Sodom, you had Destruction, and now you have Kreator. And in my humble opinion, this Kreator album blows the other 2 away, and that is saying a lot, because both of those other bands put out really nice thrash metal albums in 2025. This is an absolute genius album because it blends the melody, it blends the thrash, it puts in a little traditional heavy metal with a little bit of atmosphere sprinkled in to perfection. The album starts off with that atmosphere, with that catchiness, but about 3 or 4 songs in, boy, it starts picking up the pace and really starts the second half of this album much heavier, much more thrashy than the first, but never losing that melody. This is such uncompromised heaviness along with melody. Just absolutely brilliant. And then it finishes off with a little bit of a sentimental song that kind of has a little bit more of a heavy metal feel, maybe a little bit more Iron Maiden-y, if you will. Just perfect. My favorite songs on the album, I think I've mentioned Train Palost, probably my favorite, but a close second is Death Scream. I love Combatants, I love Barbarian, and I love the opening track, Seven Serpents. That's the song that kind of turned me on to this album. Those are probably my top 5. And then my least favorite song on the album is clearly the title track. Again, a little bit too chorusy, a little too much of an anthem. That is by far my least favorite. boy, this is going to put Megadeth, the pressure's on Dave Mustaine and the boys, because this album right here, I know it's only January, but it is my first bona fide contender for Album of the Year. Megadeth, who comes out next week, has got some big shoes to fill. And speaking of which, if you want to see what I think of the Megadeth album, I'll be doing a review of that on this channel probably right here in a week. And the best way to do that is to subscribe to the channel and get alerted to when we're doing new content. You want to see all of these new album reviews, find out what you're missing out there. So subscribe, ring the bell, give this thing a thumbs up. I would appreciate it. We've recently had a lot of new subscribers to the channel, and I appreciate it. We, over the holidays, went over the 500 mark. Thank you. That's a small number for a lot of channels, but that's a huge number for this guy right here. Thank you, each and every person that has subscribed to the channel. So again, we'll be doing that Megadeth review next week, but in the meantime, this is the Metal Dude signing off. Take care.